Hello and welcome back to GBRANZ. We have a very special guest, one of Canterbury's favourite sons, one of New Zealand's favourite sons. Andrew Mehrtens is on the couch. How are you, Mehrtens?
I'm good, thank you. I think that's stretching a bit far, one of New Zealand's favourite sons, but Canterburyans certainly look after their own, don't they?
Well, the thing is...
he was actually talking about me. He just got your name wrong.
How does that work, though? Because I was thinking about this going into this interview when I was prepping for this show, and a lot of people love to hate Cantabrians, especially when they're successful, especially the Crusaders. You've managed to go through that unscathed, and you're quite loved around New Zealand. How come Marshy's like?
Hang on.
I think look at him. I mean, he's much more intimidating a physical specimen. I don't intimidate anyone, and particularly if you're supporting another team against Canterbury and people are running at me from your team, they're likely probably to get through or at least make some ground. So the opposition crowds used to really like me.
Mate, I think it's also too because he wore Dan Carter's jersey. Like, I think everyone likes him because that's what we used to say with everyone that wore 7 at the Brumbies. Oh, you wore George Smith's jersey. Like, no one actually remembers you, man. Like,
to be fair, DC plays his role. I mean, he knows what Canterbury's like, and I think he's always said, "Oh yeah, when I was young, I had a poster of Mertz on my wall." I don't reckon he's too good to have any poster of anyone on their wall. But anyway, he said it, and Cantabrians lap it up, and I guess my strongest demographic's always been like the grandmothers, and I think people felt protective of me,
No,
I just mean as support, mate. What are you? Hang on.
My mum said the same thing. I said, I loved Mertz. And I was like, it's just because of the haircut. Who cut your hair when you first started playing?
Strangely enough, not myself. No, it wasn't me. It wasn't mum either. But no, I don't know, would go down to a barber, I guess, and get it the bowl put on, and around they went. So pretty simple.
It used to be amusing, though, because obviously in the day, it wasn't selfies that players get with the crowd. It was obviously signing stuff. So, and if there was a camera, oh my goodness gracious me. Like, you think phones are bad. People can't get their PIN number on and let to take a selfie. Back in the day when it was the old school cameras, they're trying to focus them and all, you're standing there going, But anyway, everybody would have their little sort of pockets where they're getting their autographs or doing their autographs after the game. And you would see sort of like, maybe you'd see the Richie McCaws or whatever, and there'd be a certain group of younger people getting, mostly women and that sort of carrying on. And then you'd see the props, and they are all gravitated towards people of exactly the same size. So they're all getting their signatures done. And then you'd see Mertz and this grey brigade of like
Blue rinse.
blue rinse.
There's blue steel, I had blue rinse.
Hey, we're gonna dig into pretty much a this is your life type Mertz show. We're gonna dig into your history, where you started, and we'll come back to the signing sessions at some point, I'm sure. Let's talk about the game from the weekend, because you guys were all there, weren't you? You were sidelined, JP.
Yeah, look, 17 years after retirement, Phil Wall, CEO, obviously past player, organised a classics function. So from all eras, like I was actually worried. I thought we might have needed a couple of wheelchairs there, man, at one stage to walk around the field. There's some age. But it was great. Like, it was great to be on the field, good to be associated with all the other classics. And I thought Noah was a lot better on the weekend because he straightened up a lot more. Like, and he actually took the defence line on. Like, when you, as a 10, right? Like, if you're
I didn't
running,
like that much.
mate, you were actually a closet runner, mate. You scored a lot of tries from running because no one ever thought you would. Like, right? Like, so if you,
the compliments just keep rolling off your tongue.
backhanded comment.
It's pretty funny that some of the old adages that were, there's some things in rugby that will endure. The game evolves and it's a lot different from when we were playing. But we always used to get told as a fly half, pick one time in each half and really go. And when you do, go 100%, So you're not always looking for yourself, but you're just feeding it on. I think Carter was wonderful at doing that when the opportunity actually presented itself, you'll know, and he knew, and he made it count. Richie Mo'unga, very, very similar. So you're not always looking for that at fly half. So I think just, once a half, there's going to be an opportunity. Don't go out looking for it too hard, but when it presents, just have a crack.
Yeah, and I thought he took those opportunities well. Like, I mean, his organisational skills, we still lack a little bit of organisation around the field, but I think they'll come with experience. But I think big moments in that game, like our line out, first phase ball, we turned over some really critical line outs that really crucial times in the game, like attacking down in their red zone. You know, missed up the line out.
Are you thinking you guys should have won that game, or how are you thinking after
No,
that?
look, I don't think we ever deserved to win that game, but if we did win it, it wasn't, they didn't deserve to win it, but they also then didn't, if they did win it, didn't deserve to lose it, if that makes sense. Like it was the All Black game for 79 minutes, right? Like, and if the Wallabies could come back, I mean, it was pretty scary there for the All Blacks with those 2 yellow cards with Anton Leonard-Brown, right? And then Caleb Clark. What about that? That was a brain explosion, wasn't it?
I just think it would have been, I guess, probably well against what you thought the result of the game deserved if Australia were to sneak that game, because I thought they just gifted up way too many opportunities, and their discipline at times, and when you talk discipline, you're not just talking penalties. Discipline is knock-ons, line outs you mentioned.
Staying in the defensive
Yeah,
line.
50-50 offloads. You know, like when they were back in the game, the All Blacks are down to 13 men. And I think Harry
threw that one to Lalicio, right?
Yeah.
And it was around his bootlaces.
Yeah, it's just a speculative one. Cotabeti dropped it twice, 2 passes that you just... So a lot of what they were doing was harmful to themselves and was actually playing themselves out of the game.
Yeah.
And look, the All Blacks had that discipline and those problems in the last quarter. But Australia were always chasing the game because of their own faults.
Yeah. The no-look passes, do you remember those? They did about 4 no-look passes, and they were sitting on none from 4.
Yeah.
You know, just stuff that, you know, I know you want to look ahead at the defence and eyeball them. It's part of committing the defender to you.
Straighten up.
But you can't go just trying a no-look pass willy-nilly, especially when they haven't quite got their combinations quite right yet. They're still kind of building, finding themselves the Wallabies, aren't they? So that just looked like 4... gift turnovers to the All Blacks.
We touched on first fives before, and while we've got Mehrtens here, I think we should talk about Damian Mckenzie, because he's copping it again in the media following that performance.
How?
Well, I've seen a few things popping up, and I just are we seeing progression from him, or are we seeing someone we should persevere with, or are we seeing someone that's the best we've got, or like what are your overall opinions on Mckenzie?
I think, first of all, just to touch back on Mert's earlier thought of take that one opportunity, you know, in each half. And I thought to myself, Tony Brown obviously didn't get that memo. I think he got told at least one opportunity you don't take on the line in each half.
Yeah. You knew with Brownie, first touch of the ball, he's always going to truck it himself.
1-2 dummy.
He just wanted that 1-2 dummy cut.
Yeah.
That's it, 1-2 dummy cut.
Show
and
and
he's
go Brown.
launching.
We used to say that. We used to say that.
Yeah.
Watch Brown run.
Yeah.
Like, watch him run.
You see that tousled sort of blonde hair launching itself into the defensive line. Just wants the contact.
Yeah,
Was he
I
a
think
real Ted?
to bring it up, absolutely. To bring it up is because I feel that Mckenzie, he does probably have a license to have a dig. I think that's the way that they're trying to bring him into the game plan. A lot of it's from lateral injection, which I don't sometimes think helps our attack. But I thought that he actually played pretty well at the weekend, but he was just being given so much more time defensively. He didn't have rogue defenders coming up out of line and sort of getting in his vision, and when he's going lateral, not having anywhere to go because of umbrella defence. And I thought that was probably one of his better performances. I don't know what you think, Mertz, but
yeah, I agree. I think I like more of my. I mean, he's really effective when he comes in from fullback and touching at first receiver, but that's maybe 15% of the time when he plays Chiefs or if he plays fullback for the All Blacks. And those 15% of the time, he'll come in and be first receiver and create something himself. And so it's a different sort of a role at 10 where you're getting the ball more like the 85% of the time. And a lot of that is just probably going to be the boring stuff. You're setting the line, you're setting the pace coming up, you're hitting the runner, you're just making sure you get an accurate pass. And it's kind of the boring things. And I think he's getting more and more used to doing those boring things. And Dan Carter got better and better at doing that as his career went on. You'd see him just absolutely clean catch, clean pass, get it right out in front of the guy, and then, organise with the communication and stuff like that. And I think D-Mac's such a talented player. He's always been feeling, I guess, the pressure to create something special every time he gets the ball because he can. But this is a slightly different role for him, and I think it takes some time to change that mentality.
Let's back it up and tell a few stories and hear a few yarns from the boys from way back when, all the way back up to till when it finished in about 2005. So 93 you started with Canterbury, came onto the scene, but really came onto the scene Ranfurly Shield, 94. Back when the bank was in full flight. I used to love going to the bank and watching you boys play, just to fangirl you guys for a little bit. Man, it was good. We get a soggy mince pie, go and sit on the bank, everyone's doing the Mexican wave, all kinds of warm substances falling down on you. It was amazing. But that was when you really kind of started making your mark, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was like, for me, it was almost like I'd been on the bank and jumped over the fence and put a jersey on and was running out, you know, like it all happened pretty quickly, suddenly playing for Canterbury. But I almost missed being on the bank, to be honest. I think I was more comfortable on the bank than I was out on the park. But yeah, it was awesome. We had an amazing group. I was very, very lucky coming in at the right time. We had a good blend of young guys coming through and older guys who were, you know, demanding and expected standards and engagement, but they were also very kind of caring and very keen for you to find your place pretty quickly. I'm talking about the likes of Chris England and Rob Penny, Shane Philpott, Graham Bishop.
Obviously, you won the Shield in 94. Who was that? Who did you get that off?
Waikato.
Yes.
That was one of the great on-field calls.
Todd Blackadder scored that try.
Sorry?
Todd Blackadder scored that try.
Yeah,
didn't
the big rollicking forward. Mike Brewer scored a try as well. I think we got one through the backs where one of those ones where on the field you hear it. And we've thrown the pass. Matt Cooper's made a decision to come up on defence and take out someone who got missed out by the pass. And all we heard from Coops was, oh, fuck. So, and of course, you're kind of running along. I was always about 60 metres behind the play, but as I could see Simon Forrest herring off upfield through the gap, I just was chuckling away about this. Oh, fuck.
Have you watched any of the games, any of the Ranfurly Shield games that are going on at the moment?
No, I mean, I'd take more of an interest probably if Canterbury was getting a Shield challenge.
Because you're overseas though, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes.
We need to get you a NordVPN.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Would like that. Really would like that. Not that I'm trying to get anything on the cheap, but
Well, we do actually have a discount.
We do have a discount code. So NordVPN, what that is basically is you can watch any streaming service. So if you're wanting to watch anything in New Zealand, you're wanting to keep up to date with Super Rugby, you could do that from Paris. You could be sitting there listening to Marshy commentate.
I would be very keen to do that. And after that, all I need to do is get the login details of JW Marshy. And so long as I've got the VPN set up and then get into the login there, I'm away.
Well, mine's all face protected, so fat chance of you getting in on that.
No, just bash it up a bit. Yeah, just bash it up a bit.
Exactly. Just give yourself a black eye and you'll be fine.
With the rocket.
Haven't you guys been using it? The
Yeah,
NordVPN?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
mate,
used to while I
we
was just
set
an
it up.
Aussie for the Bledisloe.
How good.
Yeah, no, we set it up a couple of weeks ago. Mate, protects the kids. Mate, up to 10 devices, mate. Like,
Brilliant. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/GBRANZ. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. There is no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box as well.
Smart move, guys. That's
Well,
good
you know what else, which will be very important from you because you're living in Paris now and you do a lot of travelling and you're always searching flights. And what it does is pick up on algorithms, doesn't it?
Ah, yes.
So what you can do with the NordVPN is you can change the countries all the time. So they can't pick up it's you looking
that
again.
you've searched the same flight twice.
That's it.
We can ramp it up
Next
on this
minute,
bloke.
it's an extra 200, 300 euros more. You could change your country and get the original price.
That's very commercial of you. I've got to say, I'm not very commercial at all. I was just thinking that to myself when I arrived on Qatar Airways yesterday.
And what an airline it was. Oh my goodness gracious me.
commercial at all.
No, I was arriving there drinking Cloudy Bay on Qatar Airways yesterday, just saying, geez, you should be more commercial.
Mate, how many dinners did you just do over the last
Not
4
enough.
days?
Not enough. Look at me. I'm wasting
Not
away.
enough. So mate, back in the 90s, mate, like so Canterbury, right? Like back in the 90s, because everyone hated the Blues, right? Like because they were the winners, man. They were like successful. So what was your sort of first taste like coming into this impressive?
Well, that was it. I mean, we had chip on shoulder about Auckland, particularly Canterbury. You know, everyone in New Zealand used to rail against Auckland, the biggest city, the most talent, and they had, you know, throughout history they've had lots of successful teams, but they won with Fitzy and Zinni and all that in the late 80s was far and away probably the most dominant team we've seen, maybe up until the Crusaders recently. So, yeah, you grow up with a chip on your shoulder here. You know, Canterbury had a proud history as well, and we're sort of thinking, you know, we're a pretty good team as well. We didn't like to see Auckland get all this all this attention, all this success. And funnily enough, when you come out and you're in the Canterbury crowd and you're trying to bag the players, the ones that you bagged the most were guys like Mark Carter, Bernie McCarhill, Zinzan Brook. Turns out they were the best of them.
Yeah.
They were the best blokes. You would find the same. Like Block Carter was an outstanding teammate, outstanding bloke. So it was quite funny transitioning from, being really parochial Cantabrian to suddenly playing alongside these guys from the rest of New Zealand and getting along with them.
Was that the start when you, like mid-90s, like obviously coming into Super Rugby, but around that sort of, is that where all the talent just started to come through at that stage? Because you guys just seem, from that that era, you just went skyrocket.
Wow, we took a couple of steps backwards first. Like, we had the Ranfurly Shield in '95, didn't we, Mertz? And you're right, like that was just the best time. Like the Ranfurly Shield, it was Ranfurly Shield fever because there's nothing else. Like there was the Ranfurly Shield and then winning the NPC, but there was no Super. There was no. Unless you were at All Black, there was no other bigger thing in
94.
And 95. There's no other bigger thing in the game. The game wasn't pro. Yeah. So having the Ranfurly Shield, like, honestly, we were going along, and I think we had 5 defences that year. There was
at least
possibly 6. There was 35,000 people there every time.
Well, the first time was the worst. We beat, and that gave us confidence. We beat Waikato. Now, Waikato in '93 had taken the Shield off Auckland after Auckland had it for 50 challenges, the record ever. And Waikato was a stonking big team. And we went up there not really expecting, we backed ourselves to play, but maybe not to go and win against a team like that. We got the Shield. We'd been playing in front of maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people at Lancaster Park. And we got that Shield. Our first challenge was counties, and there wasn't even really a big crowd when we first got to Lancaster Park in the bus. So we've gone in and walked out around the ground and looked around, and there were a few people. It was clear there was going to be a little bit more than 4,000 or 5,000 people. But when we've gone back into the sheds to get fully ready and get back out for the game, the hordes had absolutely descended, and there were 35,000 people out. So, but we weren't ready for that. So we've gone running out. We're used to playing in front of family and friends. We've gone running out, and suddenly we're met by this huge roar from 35,000 rabid Cantabs, and we've all gone trying to turn around and go back in. What the hell is this? And that was incredible. But it gave us it was awesome. We got the confidence from that, but also that period with numbers of people suddenly playing in front of a lot of people, having to perform in front of a lot of people was incredible. And it was one of those little elements that just fell into place at the right time. Good blend of youth and experience in the team, a good kind of a nurturing culture of the senior players and the coaches, Vance Stewart and Ozzie McLean, almost the forgotten men in terms of Canterbury Rugby and Crusaders Rugby, kind of Crusaders genesis and Canterbury Rugby's development. Sorry, I jumped in on your answer there, but 95 sort of continued that with Shield challenges, didn't it? And it was just, we were lucky. We worked pretty hard, and like Marshy said, it wasn't all beer and Skittles. We went from a pretty successful 95 into 96, the first year of Super Rugby, which was tough for the Crusaders.
Dead last.
Let's go back a year, because 95 was big for you as well, because you're suddenly off the back of this Ranfurly Shield form, you're thrust into the All Blacks and heading to South Africa. Like one of the greatest World Cups there's ever been.
Yeah, and it was whirlwind. It was a headlong rush, and I hadn't anticipated being in the All Blacks. So things had conspired for me at the start of the season, where they had a number of games to see all the contenders for the All Blacks. So maybe a squad of 40 or 50 players that they were having to look at. And there were all these games, South Island versus North Island. Now, I got an injury in Super, whatever it was called at the time. Got an injury,
Super 8 or
had a dead leg, and I was out for a few weeks. So I missed that. But I would have played for the South Island, and they got thumped by 40 or 50 points by the North Island, so I missed that. Of course, as a fly half going backwards the whole game, you're going to look like rubbish. So I missed that. Then there was a trial, and I would have been in the possibles versus the probables, but I still was out from my bruise on my leg, and the team that I would have played in got pumped by 50 points again. Finally, I got one match where they were like, we've run out of matches now, we've got to see everyone, so we'll put him in this game. I played for basically a shadow All Black team it was called the Harlequins, like a barbarian style team. We played a Waikato development team and put almost 100 points on them. Going forward all day. It was the game where Zinzanbrook did his Achilles, but I was like playing with a proper shadow All Blacks team against these young hopefuls from Waikato. Looked the goods. So suddenly I got thrown in the team, and next thing I'm off to South Africa, and I'm still pinching myself for 6 weeks going, what the hell is this? What am I doing here? It was...
What was your... When you got to South Africa, obviously you got Jonah in the team, and what was your brief on getting him the ball? Just get him the ball as quickly as you can. Work on your passing right to left.
Pretty
and
much.
just pass it as far as you can.
Everyone knew that. Yeah, I mean, you just wanted to get him the ball as often as possible. And sometimes it wasn't as easy a matter of just getting it to him. But he was able to make a fist of it no matter what. You know, in the early days when there were 2-3 players on him, he'd still be able to shrug most of them off. And if, heaven forbid, if he got more, than 5 metres to build up some speed, it was pretty frightening. I mean, I've been involved in defences. Admittedly, I wasn't involved once the defences went forward, but off line-outs where he's come in from the wing, like playing against counties, and he's standing there at first receiver off the line-out, and you've got 3 or 4 blokes all standing there with their knees knocking. My knees weren't knocking together because I knew as soon as the ball came off the top of the line-out, I wasn't going forward. The other blokes were going forward, and I was off covering the danger that's out wide. Drift. Yours.
Yeah. He might kick it.
I'll cover the Jonah doing the chip and chase.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, we even had a fax. I mean, this shows how old it is. But there was a fax from a New Zealand supporter, a young boy from the North Island, but just before the final in Johannesburg, and we had all the fax messages of support from New Zealand up around our team room and everything. And one in particular stood out, which was this young kid from the North Island who put, "Hey, All Blacks, rugby's a team game. So all of you pass it to Jonah." But at times that was the attitude.
What a crazy place, though, South Africa, particularly up 95.
Yeah, it was still a little bit fraught, you know what I mean? And it was for a few more seasons
Yes.
after that. And I tell you what, it's
Dangerous.
absolutely flying now, unbelievable.
Yeah,
And
it's so good at the moment.
no, it's gorgeous. But back in the 90s, like you had security at your, like walking off the elevator off your hotel and someone standing there with an Uzi, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like
the good thing about that was all those police that were your security detail would take you on your day off and go up to the police shooting range. And suddenly you got the Uzi. Oops.
What that mate? That final though, that must have been incredible to see South Africa back in rugby again. Like obviously we all know the result now, so we've all moved on. But to have them back in,
you never forget, do you?
Back in rugby, and to have the final at Ellis Park and in front of that, like Ellis Park at the best of times is an amazing stadium with an incredible atmosphere, let alone World Cup final, and they're in it.
Yeah, we really felt the difference by the end of the tournament. I mean, All Blacks have always had a lot of support in South Africa over the years with touring from the coloured population who saw supporting the opposition as a way of sort of their protest vote. And there's always been a lot of rugby in the Cape from the coloured population, but it obviously wasn't integrated. And so they saw, the white South Africans, the Springboks were the symbol of their kind of white supremacy, so they portrayed it as, So the All Blacks got a lot of support, and we found that, even through to down when we were in Cape Town for the semi-final, that the amount of support of South Africans coming along wearing All Black jerseys, cheering us on at trainings and whatnot was huge. But that last week of the final, it had really turned around, and on the way to Ellis Park in the bus, there was just no South African support anywhere for the All Blacks, and we really felt it was properly in a hostile place for us then. Of course, that doesn't change you on the field, you know what I mean? If you can let the crowd get to you, but normally it sort of builds it up. I know it does for you, and it will for you as well as combative sort of players. The crowd getting into you actually spurs you on to be more determined to win. But it really had been a big feeling of change across those 5 or 6 weeks. And then, when Nelson Mandela came out onto the field with the number 6 Springbok jersey on and the cap on, and the crowd went absolutely mad. It was, you knew it was a pretty special moment.
Every time we played over there, I think I played 10 tests over in South Africa, lost 9, because I think 6 times Nelson Mandela showed up. Every time he showed up, man, we lost. Every time he showed up.
I don't want you to relive the trauma of it, but obviously, like these days, there's a lot of mental skills coaches and things like that to deal with things that might happen on the rugby field. That drop goal shaves the posts. Like, how do you
Shaves the posts of the corner post, probably, maybe not the actual posts.
how do you deal with coming that close to winning a World Cup and knowing that, you know, for the rest of your life, like you obviously look back on that and go, shit, maybe I followed.
Yeah, well, I was devastated. I was never necessarily a really good, consistent drop kicker. I could kick it and it would take off at times and go well. I wasn't a particularly good drop kicker, and I probably missed maybe 4 in that game or 5. I got 1, and the one that I got, ironically, hadn't realised that Jonah was probably another 15 metres wide and had a bit of space to get a head of steam up. So might have been, you know, the chance for him to score a try that might have broken open the game, and I got the 1 out of 5 in that one. All I remember about the drop kick that supposedly shaved the post, and if it's the one I'm thinking of, which is the main one at the end, it went a long way wide, it was used again. And I can just remember being in position for the drop goal, sort of on the 22 or back from the 22 and right in front, and I could feel you standing on the side of the ruck, just boring. You got crazy enough eyes anyway, you know, and those like boring, and he just out like a shot. And I think when I got it, I was more looking at him for the charge down, not for any threat to self, but just conscious of him getting up. And I think I probably rushed it just based on the fact that he was ripping through. You know, I'm not trying to find excuses. So yeah, it was pretty devastating. In saying that, you know, we got into the extra time and we went up. So I slammed a pretty good penalty in extra time as well. And then, you know, the other regret really is not realising that Joel was going to take the drop goal at that time. The scrum was on the wrong side. We just assumed that they were going to set one up in midfield, work their way into the centre of the field and then take the drop goal. And suddenly he's dropped back in the pocket. We've raced up on, you know, I was clearly keen to get up on the midfield so they didn't get a head of steam up and run straight at me, get up right in their faces. And so I've shot up and then didn't realise, and he's dropped back in and kicked it, and geez, he struck it well. You know, I remember sort of looking up going, crap, but also, geez, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
We sat in the changing rooms and just like dead silence. You feel like you've let the whole world, you've let New Zealand down, obviously, and you've let your mates down and stuff like that. That's all of us. And I think that feeling 95 was that we really didn't feel like we fired a shot. We weren't able to. Like South Africa shut us down in the game. We had that sort of classic conundrum of, do we change our game and try to play a different sort of a game plan that we're not used to
During the game.
Yeah, like do we just play more conservative, or do we keep trying to swing our way out of it? And we hadn't played a conservative game, really, and we didn't know whether it would work. You normally think against South Africa, well, you know, if you're going to get into a grind, they've got the bigger bodies and stuff like that, so you don't want to slow the game down. You want to speed it up. But at the same time, it wasn't working for us. And it's a question of, okay, is it the tactics that's not working, or is it the execution that's not good enough? So if we keep trying to play our game that we know and that's worked well and everything, hopefully the execution will get better. And it just didn't. They just kept shutting us down. Like I say, they were really, really fit. So we felt less devastated. I mean, it was awful in '99 when we lost to France in the semi-final, particularly because we'd been up in that match. But I think the desolation of '95 was a lot more that it was, you know, closer within our grasp, and that we really hadn't done ourselves justice but hadn't been able to. France just blew us off the park second half, didn't they, in '99? Yeah. Well, you started on the bench, actually.
Yeah, well,
no, what I mean is it's kind of...
I was watching it.
It's his out. That's his out, I mean, you know.
It's his out.
Yeah. But Mertz, like, because we've just been recently talking, obviously, about that game in 2000, and that's been really topical with the Bledisloe Cup being on.
Yeah, of course.
And I've always said, like, you know, this is not meant to be sounding overly humble, because it's not intended that way. Even if we'd lost that game, yes, it would have pissed me off, but in hindsight, the oversight of it all would have been, it was still an amazing game to be part of. Regardless, you've part of a game that's incredibly historic. You know, the result is important, absolutely, and that's why we play the game. We all want to win. Like that final was an incredible game for the drama, like an overtime into a final. You know, the way that it unfolded.
They made a movie about it.
Yeah, they made it became a chess game, you know.
You're welcome, Clint Eastwood. Well, without a certain missed drop goal, there would have been no Rainbow Nation, no fairy tale ending for Nelson Mandela, no
Matt Damon,
no Morgan Freeman acting as Mandela.
I've said this before, but mate, did you know? Like, so when we went into double extra, you went into one extra time, or
just the one,
just the one. So when we were in double extra time. That was like when the game was over, like it was only 30 odd seconds before Johnny Wilkinson kicked it. If we were still a draw, it was drop goals from the 22 and 15 metres in. That's how the World Cup final was going to actually play out.
Terrible, isn't it?
And double extra time, because no one actually ever thought. We actually said it as a crazy joke. Eddie Jones, he was like. He said it at training, like after the quarter final. He goes, if we get into the final, double extra time, we need to know drop kick, because Matt Dunning was the third off the rank. Like he
had a good history of drop goals.
Well, no, correct, right? No, we actually did it. We did a competition at training, and he came third. Like he was actually going to be like a penalty shootout, right?
Big tuck.
That's what you were going to have for World Cup decide. I think they've changed it now. I think it's set double extra time.
Wrestle.
Yeah. I think they go to the second. I think they go finish on the second overtime, and then if it's still a draw, then they play out golden point. I think it is. I think.
I've always thought, just to throw something in there real quick, taking players off. Got to lose a forward and a back.
Great idea.
They do that in touch.
Every sort of 3 or 4 minutes, if it's still not,
in first extra time or second,
after the second or whatever, the second extra time. Yeah.
Oh, you got to be a better result
to decide the match.
Yeah,
that's why the All Blacks are prepping with cards, yellow cards and red cards.
That's right.
They'll bring that in for 2027.
They're working for the next World Cup. It's just smart, mate. You see?
It's just smart, mate.
You guys think we're just capitulating and having discipline problems. We're actually going, let's practice. Down to 13, just to see how it goes.
Heading back to, let's go back to Crusaders now, because start off the first 2 seasons, I think last in 6th, and then we win in 1998. In Auckland, against the guys you guys hate, underdogs.
Hey, well, look,
that was a crazy word.
Well, no, you've said it. You hate
too much then.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, as we got more success, funnily enough, we hated them less.
Yes.
You became the new Auckland.
We became the new Auckland. Everyone hated us.
Yeah, correct.
But how good was that? Because you get you're behind for most of the game, and then there was that kick to James Kerr.
Don't know how we won that game. Still don't know. I don't know how we were in the game. They were absolutely stellar lineup, phenomenal, and that
was a nuts game.
We were just scrappy. We just stayed in there. We had, I look at probably the unsung heroes, and he wasn't completely unsung because he was in the All Blacks, but Steve Surridge was just phenomenal. Now, if you go back and watch that game and just watch a player like Steve Surridge, the amount of tackles and wrestles that he, was going for steals or whatever, and Maxwell chasing through, and just about every time he sprinted, every time we did sprint tests pre-season, Norm Maxwell would blow one of his quads out, if you can call them quads. But
I wouldn't.
God, he was a hell of a player.
Norm Berryman as well.
Yeah, as he took off on that, I remember thinking at the time he's going to blow his quad again.
Mate.
He was off for the line. So we just, in fact, 2 of those 3 titles that we won in a row, to this day, that 2001, I don't know how we won. We had 30% possession against the Brumbies. I'm sure we'll get onto it.
Because Andre wasn't good.
Lazy running.
Play on.
Sorry. Running back into position just outside Stephen Larkham. Oops. It wasn't deliberate.
So that's when the Crusaders culture started to become a thing, right? They really started to. Were you guys part of that, or is it actually a thing? Is it like a? Or is it just
absolutely.
we're lucky that we've got some good players in the squad at the moment? I'm going to say it's culture.
We were a really good squad of talented players, but not superstars. Yes, we had a scattering of All Blacks. A lot of them ended up being All Blacks because of our success and because they grew as players. But I agree. Like we just formulated a really good work ethic off the field. We were pretty hard trainers, and we just had this mindset that we're probably not going to be the best team in the competition each year, but we could be the toughest team to beat. And we won games and finals and semi-finals against adversity and against the form book, and that just because we had an inner belief in ourselves that that we could beat the superstar teams. And so, yeah, that's what formulated a really good culture of work ethic. And, if you nobody was above being taken the piss out of, that was the real good thing. If you came in with a big head, it was an easy target.
Chopped off.
Oh my God.
And there were a couple of self-appointed policemen making sure of that.
Look, playing against you guys, like particularly around that time, for me it was when we used to come up with game plans and against you guys, like the thing we noticed always was your willingness to work, like your work ethic, your defensive line, and how you guys kind of also too changed like defense, where you'd go defend and not go hard at the breakdown, and then all of a sudden take that opportunity when it arose, and then you'd create a turnover. Like you guys,
just that cohesion and the confidence of your mates, and that was Wayne Smith. I mean, Ozzie McLean and Vance Stewart had done a great job for our group here in Canterbury, and then Smithy kind of took it to the next level in terms of probably sophistication and whatnot as the game was evolving more into the modern form. And, the drills that we used to do painstakingly, every training, just staying connected with one another on defence, and having the discipline not to jump out.
What
in
sort of
those
drills?
days, drills I think we had rope or we had string, didn't we? And we all had to kind of be
Those
connected
Velcro,
with the
those
string.
Velcro things.
Yeah, and we all had
so
to
talk
just
us
stay
through
connected.
how that worked. Like, it's
What was
paint the picture.
what worked at the time there, and it's as it's evolved, you get some guys now that will shoot out of the line, obviously to stress out the attack, but you've still got the line comes in behind. In those days, we were still defending into out, so it was still a lot of drift, and so it was about just having the discipline not to get in front of the guy on your inside, so you're always able to see his back. And you're always staying connected to him, so that if he got beaten on the outside, you're in, and you've got his back. Or if it was me, I pull the next guy in outside, and he's got your back. Somebody's got to make a tackle, but not me. So it was just doing those, so we got used to kind of being under stress, but not losing our form. So you got to always stay, so you could see the guys. Get the guys back on your inside, and plus the communication. We did drills on how we identifying players opposite us. The guy with the green boots or whatever the heck it was. I've got afro or whatever it is. Identifying who you got. Firstly, numbering from the outside, and just making sure that no matter if you thought the players had got it, that you actually absolutely made sure that they did, and that you've got to work to the kind of the least sophisticated person in the group. So some guys might have had experience of good defensive systems, but they would practice it as much alongside the new guys to just get everybody in the system. So it was just painstaking work. They made it fun, Wayne Smith worked very hard on the fun angle. There was always with Gilbert and Oka, as they were applying kind of the values we'd lived through the year, you'd inevitably distill everybody's contributions as how we want to live during the year into about 5 different things, and one of them was about respect, and one of them was always about hard work and stuff like that, but one of them was always about enjoyment and fun, because at the end of the day, the sport, that's what it's about. That's why you're playing it. And so, just guys having a good time together and just building more and more confidence. And then in 98, we were last after 4 weeks of the competition. Wayne Smith subsequently got a plaque made up that showed the table after 4 rounds. I mean, this is in a competition that only went for 11 rounds. So after 3 or 4 rounds, we were last and ended up winning. But we were also a little bit lucky in the draw, because after that point, and I think we had a bye and then it moved on, it seemed like every game got more and more intense as the season went on. So we were able to take little steps. I think the Brumbies in 98 weren't going that well, neither were the Stormers.
10 injuries that year.
And so we... Oh, okay.
We were in the
blame game, eh?
We were in the final in 97 and then got absolutely.
So one of our
smacked
early
by
games, I think we got confidence up by beating the Brumbies, because they'd been in the final last year, but they weren't at their top in 98. Yep. The next week, I think maybe we beat the Stormers, and that was a little step up again, and then a little step up. And each week, the luck of the draw meant that we could increase our intensity and increase our confidence.
We also had then, didn't we, because of all of that, and that's the background of it. It's really well explained, actually. And then you did start to develop some genuine freakish firepower, and an ability to get out of jail. Like I remember games that we were winning in the sort of last minutes of games, just simply because someone like a Fata Saola or step up, or
Step up. I see what you've
Step
done
up,
there.
all right. You like
Good
that?
one.
Yeah, nice little segue there. Vuni Baka. You know, we had
Vuni
these freakish
Baka.
tackles.
Wow. Some space.
Mate, Caleb Ralph, after
Mate.
probably running 20k in the match, runs another K late in the game to run a
What
support
a hell
line.
of a player.
Yeah, so
Normie
we
B.
had this ability. Normie B,
Norm
like could break the
Berriman.
game open,
Actually,
and then guys
Distant
like
cousins.
and then we had guys like him who would, mate, we would be having a great day, but every penalty that we got, he would kick every single one on the day, so he would step up.
Gibson, Daryl
drop
Gibson,
goal.
then-
Remember the drop goal
Oh,
in Pretoria?
I do. Moment of madness from the young fella. Actually, Normie B, speaking of Normie B, when I pulled the fingers at that crowd in Pretoria, he was the first guy to get to me, and he had white shorts the size of a spinnaker. And he had this beautiful, he was like Stevie Wonder. And in fact, when you went out with him, he would sing with a voice like Stevie Wonder's.
Oh,
He's
wow.
absolutely beautiful with the dark glass, and he's, you know, got his... But he was the first one to get to me, and he was grinning so much. And then I realised he didn't even know whether the drop kick had gone through or not. He'd just seen the finger. He just saw the fingers. That's what he was excited
He
about.
didn't give a shit about that.
But he was huge in '98. You know, he really took that kind of the business end of the competition by the scruff of the neck. Like he was awesome against Natal over there in the last round robin game.
Yeah.
Then we came back and played them again the next week in the semi-final at Lancaster Park, and he was huge. And it was that moment where, you know, we'd been good internally with our culture. You know, we had a couple of the boys from up north had come down. Norm Maxwell was one, Con Barrel, and Kevin Napier had been down in Normie B. And so suddenly there was a bit more kind of, maybe a bit more Māori influence in the team than the traditional kind of farming Pākehās that Canterbury was renowned for. And suddenly Normie B's, you know, he's scoring a try and going around giving it that one, and the crowd's starting to get up as well. And it was just, pretty heady days.
The normal shake of the hand. Good try, mate.
Richard Lowe used to score it, run back, and I'd be up there looking for it to get my little 2 points, and he'd just punch it to me, the ball. It's like, okay, awesome. Great celebration, Lowe.
Can we back up to that incident with you pulling the fingers and just explain like what happened? Because there'll be people listening to this that won't remember it, or people that will remember it fondly.
Well, if they've ever Googled me, like I do regularly, you don't see images of tries or big tackles, you just see the fingers. So it was 99, we'd had a tough tour. In fact, we'd had a moment in Cape Town after we lost to the Stormers where we were really in trouble, and Normie B, who stood up, he didn't tend to make a habit of speaking addressing the team. He stood up at our court session. There was a bit of doom and gloom, and he basically said, fellas, I don't think, you know, we're not being honest with ourselves. We talk about hard work and being there for one another and stuff like that. He said, but we're not able to have the hard conversations with one another. You know, we're careful of everyone's feelings when we don't seem to be able to say, hey, I need more of you out at training. I need more, you know, out of you. I don't want to drop the ball at training. You need to concentrate more or whatever. I need to be able to rely on you on defence or whatever. And so he had this big kind of speech in the
And he
team
hardly
room.
said a boo,
That's
didn't he?
right.
Like, so
And
that's
he
a big
grinned
thing for him to speak.
Till about 2 a.m, but and he'd made that. We got up to Pretoria, and it had been a tough tour, and we had our backs to the wall a little bit. We were down. We had the scrum at the end. I wanted to avoid drop kicks because, you know, I was still scarred from 95 really, and Marshy saying, yeah, it's a drop goal. We had a big committee meeting behind the scrum. The scrum's about to go into their 50th scrum of the day against this massive hulking Bulls pack, and they're just Toddy Blackadder calls out, just fucking do something. We're like, okay, let's do it. I wanted to run the ball, because I thought, they're all going to go for me for the drop goal. I wanted to give it to some other unlucky bastard, and it can be your fault we lost. And Marshy threw it to where I should have been, ran back to get the ball.
That's actually being overly kind. Just be honest. I threw you a pretty average ship pass,
I was off and running.
which was rare.
You threw it to me standing to my right side, and I was taking off to run it, had to go back and grab it. By that stage, there's no time to do anything. If I'd had time to prepare, I'm convinced I probably still would have missed it, you know, with drop goals. But didn't have time, just snapped it as quick as I could, and it's gone through. And I've run back, much like Brian Mckenzie apparently in 1978 when he kicked that goal against Wales. I've run back sort of going, I think I got that. And Norm Berryman's arrived with his Spinnaker shorts and we started celebrating. And it was just a moment of exuberance. It was nice after the game because I went to the press conference to apologise. And they asked Ruben Creer, the Bulls captain, what did you think of this cheeky little bugger pulling the fingers to your crowd? And he had a little moment where he reflected and he sort of looked over with a little smirk and he said, I probably would have done the same thing. So that kind of diffused it for the South African media a little bit, and they were pretty good to me after. I think they were proud of me. They finally saw some balls on the field,
He's being again reasonably humble though, because you did have a penalty shot a little bit earlier than that, didn't you? Where and goal kicking is honestly, there's no glory in it, if you ask me. You're either kick it over because you're supposed to, and if you miss, everyone thinks you're shit.
Absolutely.
And he had an opportunity, and the people.
And he was shit.
The people he did miss. So this was a chance for us to go ahead, and man, they were quite abusive. So. He did kind of gravitate back towards that area where he missed the goal.
I was pissed off because, I can handle a miss. We've all missed goal kicks before and whatever. I've struck this ball absolutely beautifully from wide out, right in front of the crowd, shouting beer raining down or whatever. And I've struck this ball. Seriously, I probably didn't ever strike a better place kick. It's beautiful. It's curving right to left, like a nice golf draw, straightening up, going right down the middle of the post. And suddenly, because there's a gap in the stadium at Loftus, that front left, and it's come right in, and the ball's just suddenly got blown sideways just as it's getting the post and missed to the right. And I'm like, what? So annoyed. And then the crowd's cheering as if they've put me off. And I'm like, what? So it just all added up. It got too much for me.
Were you giving it back to the crowd at that point?
Well, no, only when I got a safe distance away into the middle of the field after the drop goal. So, no, I wasn't really. I mean, there's no point giving it back unless you win. Like, that's why I always, with guys who sort of beat their chests or whatever, or girls who are, having a bit of a go on the field and mouthing off, don't do it until you win. Because you just look like a dick.
You really do.
You mouth off and then you lose. It's like, it just bites you. So I didn't after that. But that was probably why it culminated in pulling the fingers.
So going forward to 2003, how come, because the World Cup is happening, you're still up there playing some decent rugby. What happened there? Like, why weren't you on the plane over to Australia?
To be fair, I wasn't in the greatest shape in 2003. I had a big summer down in Queenstown. Came back. I actually ran a personal best.
How many kegs?
Well, I would have been 95, 96.
I just remember Moxie, our trainer, Mike, at the time when you walked in, he just started laughing. and for him to start laughing, because he's just like, how have you gone that far?
What do you normally play?
When I started, I was 78 kilograms. And then, of course, you try and put on a bit of muscle bulk and stuff. And it was in the day where heavier was better. These days, leaner and lighter to get through the game. But in those days, heavier was better.
Always.
And I got to sort of 92 reasonably comfortably. And then this, big Queenstown took me to 95. And I remember being just so scared of letting the team down by being out of shape that when I got back, I actually ran a personal best in the 3K. I ran 11:17, which best ever, just because I was thinking, oh God, I've let the team down. So wasn't in the greatest shape in 2003. We made the final. We lost to the Blues in the final. By that stage, I was kind of getting on the outer. I certainly wasn't the model player for a guy like Robbie Deans, who was the coach. Who was Crusaders coach as well as the assistant All Blacks coach.
Because there was talk in the media, I think it was in the media, about your relationship with Robbie Deans at the time. Was that fractured?
Mate, Marshy said it, mate. Like, these two used to go at each other. Like, remember you saying, tell us in an earlier podcast.
They used to. Well, Mertz was Mertz, the legend. So, like, Robbie could be very, what's the word, matter of fact if he had something in his mind,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's not the guy out there pulling the trigger. And so, I would disagree with him at times. Mertz would disagree with him at times. But that's what good teams have the ability
but
to
it got
do.
uncomfortable at training though, like where these two were like, maybe you've said it before.
Yeah,
where these two were like,
Why are you throwing Marshy under the bus, mate?
No, you said it before.
I said, yeah.
To be honest, I
I
was probably ignorant of that at the time, and I was probably just convinced that I was right. And you want a certain bit of that. You want a certain bit of chutzpah from the fly half. But I was probably a little bit tone deaf as to what kind of an example I was setting, particularly for younger guys. I was never a wonderful trainer, and I was always good, I think, at welcoming younger guys into the team and making them feel welcome and worthy and stuff like that, getting on well with them. But if you were a young player watching me, how I operated in the gym and stuff like that, I wasn't a great example. And I think Rob and I just had different philosophies on the game. I was much more a Wayne Smith style coach. Rob, I think, is a lot more mechanical sort of a coach, really good at probably a bit like Eddie Jones, maybe really good at working on the bread and butter stuff and the just doing ad nauseum the really basic things, the boring things, and that's great. But not being maybe mercurial or whatever. And so we were just slightly different people, but we had a working relationship as well. He'd been my hero as a goal kicker, when I was growing up as a rabid Canterbury fan. So, so 2003, I wasn't in the greatest shape, and so I could understand that. And also it was quite funny because John Mitchell came to me because they said, we're not selecting you. And I think I gave them a bit of a let off in the media. I said, look, to be honest, if I was selecting the team, I might not have picked me either. So, but they came and showed me this video footage of the previous year against the Wallabies, and they said, look, here's big David Lyons. He's charging straight into your channel. They're making a lot of ground there through you. This is obviously a tactic from the Wallabies. They're really targeting you. And I'm like, well, that's not rocket science, is it? We try and attack that seam. Most fly halves aren't wonderful tacklers.
Always the 10.
Yeah. And that's the seam, between backs and forwards. So, and that's the, closest, easiest sort of channel. Everyone's doing that. He's a big body, and he was going hard. And we know I'm not a great defender. So, this is nothing new. At the end of the day, if my net contribution to the team is negative or not as positive as you'd want, then, that's understandable. So, didn't make the team. They went to the World Cup. I did get told that I was going to be the next cab off the rank. Obviously, my cab was in the repairs when the rank was being solicited. So when Ben Blair got injured and I thought, maybe I'll get a call up here, Ben Hartinger went across and good on him. Like, I was happy for Ben Hartinger, but it sort of made a little bit of mockery of what I've been told. I'd rather be just told, hey, look, you're not a shot. You're not the sort of player that we want in the team. And, we've moved on.
So the Crusaders, your career, you must have known. Was there a time where you kind of knew, shit, I've been here for a while, but it's really, I can see my end is right there in front of me?
Well, yeah, I didn't see the end as clearly as when Dan Carter arrived. That brought things into focus really well. And funnily enough, I think in 2001, Rob Deans wasn't happy with my form or whatever and actually dropped me out, and I went back to club rugby. And I never made much of the fact that year the Crusaders finished 11th and Old Boys won the club championship in Christchurch. Nice. But I'll point it out now.
I was at one of those games, and Mehrtens was playing 10, and it was like a team full of All Blacks or Crusaders, and same thing at that time. Mehrtens picked the ball up from in a ruck and took a drop goal. He took a drop goal from inside a
Rugby
ruck.
Park, I think down that far end by the fish and chips. Rutland Street fish and chips. Here we go, commercial. Yeah, no, we had that was a great final. I think that was when we had the majors playing as well, and you and Hursty and Daryl Gibson. And then I think the forward pack got boosted a little bit by the fact Reuben Thorne came on. He was on the bench. We were up against Christchurch, actually, McCaw's mob, and that was great beating them. But they were pummeling our scrum, and we were right on our line, and then in came Reuben Thorne with shoulders about 3 metres wide. Good play. And his jersey about 4 sizes too small, and just single-handedly held the scrum up on our line. So we had it was awesome going back to play club rugby, and I really, I know these professionals these days can't play club rugby. I think the difference would be too great, but gee, having the benefit of those All Blacks playing in club rugby would be fantastic, I think, for both, because it's a great environment. But when I first got back in 2001 to club footy and was training on a Tuesday, Thursday night, you warm up 3 laps around the field, and a couple of cheeky young Old Boys said at the end of the training one time, are you happy about the fact that Dan Carter's going to be taking your All Blacks jersey? Because I wasn't in the Crusaders, but I was still in the All Blacks that year. And they said, you happy that Dan Carter's going to take your jersey off you? And I said, oh, which one is he? And they said, he's that one over there. And I looked at the wrong guy. I didn't look at DC. It was another player in the under-21 team or the senior B team. And I didn't think too much of him when I watched it this other bloke. And so I've sort of sniggered to myself and walked away thinking, these blokes, Dan Carter, yeah, whatever. And then he's turned up like the best player ever. Unbelievable. And I was lucky that he was so good because you could slot him into any position in the back line. If it had been head-to-head at 10, clearly I lose. But he played at 12 quite a lot. He played 13, fullback. He might have started some games in the NPC on the wing, I think, as well. And that allowed me to sort of continue at 10. They just plugged him in where they felt the gap was weakest. Why they didn't think 10 was weakest, I don't know. And it was just phenomenal. And I love playing with those sort of guys. He was, he and Richie were just superb.
Again, he's not going to say it, but obviously he's learning off him. You got the current All Black 10, one of the best 10s we've ever had in the game, and Dan Carter is a young kid with no experience, no game plan knowledge, no idea how to run a team and get them in the right positions and make good decisions. So for Dan Carter, he comes in and learns off the best. And so it's not exactly this guy's come in and taken his jersey. This guy's come in and he's in the environment where he's learning from the current All Black 10 and starting to have his tutelage as to where he needs to get to try and actually emulate that. So it was great for DC to come into that environment.
I think I'm proudest about, hopefully I just eased his entry into the team as a young player. I hope that he felt that, was good to him when he came in and stuff. I know he talks sometimes about when he first got selected with the All Blacks or first got selected in the Crusaders ahead of me or whatever, and he said I went up straight away to him afterwards. I'm proud of that. Proud of the fact that hopefully he came in. I mean, he knew he was talented. He's phenomenal. But hopefully he felt that we were a welcoming group in the Crusaders.
Oh, you guys had a great culture though too, right? But he also probably learned what not to do as well.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
It's not always about what to do.
It's over at the bench press.
Yes.
What?
Mertz, thank you very much for coming on the show, mate. It's been some great yarns. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. Nice to be here. I'm really proud to have done the first episode of 3 in my This Is Your Life.
Yeah.
I'll be back next week.
Mate, we haven't got into the early 2000s yet, bro. We've got to get into the early
You haven't come far either, have you?
No, that's right. No,
just from Paris,
yeah. No, anytime. You guys commute in from different places, so I'm happy to do that.
Beautiful.
And thank you very much for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, make sure you go and check us out on all our social media platforms as well. Give us a share on social media, and we'll be back again next week.